What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into another episode of the Johnny's Report. I'm your host, Jay Hollihan. We're going to be talking tonight about a tweet that St. John's head coach Rick Pitino sent out following some pretty interesting news around the world of college hoops. So, St. John's head coach Rick Pitino put out a tweet the other day following the news that Thierry Darlan will be committing to the University of Kentucky. Why that is big news? Well, that's because for the first 2 years post-high school basketball for Darlan, he has been playing in the NBA G League. Rick Pitino said, "So let me get this straight. We can now recruit G League players. Is the NBA next? I have first dibs on at Giannis Antetokounmpo's Twitter or X username." Now, this topic of story is very much a premier story around college sports, or at least it should be, because it is a big deal that a professional, pretty as close to a professional athlete as you can get without actually stepping into the NBA draft, testing out those waters, or which he has done, Darlan has done, by the way, or hearing your name called on draft night and suiting up for an NBA team. Playing on the NBA G League team. And Thierry Darlan, who, as I mentioned, in 2 years, he was a member of Ignite. And you get clear firsthand look, and he actually went to the NBA Academy Africa, which is a program that can lead to international players, obviously, in Africa coming over to play college hoops and potentially play in the NBA. And that's all well and good. St. John's had Mohamed Keita, who right before recording this, I actually found out he's playing now at Temple from Tulsa, where he was previously after his 1 year at St. John's in 22 and 20, or the 2022-23 season. Now, Darlan on March 2nd, 2023, committed to the NBA G League Ignite team. He drew offers from Arizona and Kansas, and for 2 seasons, he's been playing in the G League. He entered his name in the NBA draft in 2024. He withdrew after that, and he has been with the Rip City Remix as well, which is for the Portland Trailblazers. So he's already been selected in the G League draft. He also played for the Delaware Bluecoats this past year, the 76ers affiliate. So now we're seeing a guy whom has firsthand experience in the weight room, in the coaching aspects and everything on a professional basis. I mean, has not been, from my knowledge, taking college courses or anything along that matter in terms of getting a degree, but yet we're going to allow this to come over into the NBA or into the college basketball world. And whether it's not about whether or not this guy is actually going to have an advantage in terms of his play, because I mean, he hasn't been averaging big minutes in the G League, or else he would obviously be playing in the NBA or have a shot to move up into the NBA this season with potentially the 76ers, the team that he just, of course, was with their G League affiliate. Now, should it be allowed for players whom you see play for the G League, the overtime, and elite, whatever? Should those players be allowed to then commit to being players at the college basketball ranks? And yes, I would not make an argument there. But once you're drafted into being on one of these G League teams, why are you allowing this? Why are you allowing these guys to then come into the college game? I mean, it would be as if and back in if in 2004 or 2005 he was really not cutting it in the NBA level, LeBron James would then say, "Hey, I'm going to go play at Ohio State." Obviously, that didn't happen, and obviously he was drafted to go into the NBA, so you can't do that. But imagine if that did happen, because imagine if that could happen down the road. If, say, a player didn't get drafted into the NBA, but was signed onto an NBA, say, summer, the summer league roster, and then that player were to be able to say, "Hey, you know what? This really isn't for me. I just came from, overtime elite. I think I'm going to instead go and play at Kansas." That would be so. The lines have blurred so much between amateur players and professional players that it's not even funny. And before it was, St. John's has Imran Soljanovic, whom now he didn't play professionally per se. He was on the U18 team internationally, and Ruben Prey has done that as well. So it's one thing for those guys whom, may have played with professional players on national teams or players who have contracts to play in the European leagues. That's one thing. But it's another thing for you have the best of the best talent. Best of the best talent. And now these guys are going to be going from that level of learning to now the college game. And listen, I would probably argue there are some NBA head coaches that probably would be better suited at the collegiate level. And there are some college basketball coaches that maybe could have a shot at coaching in the NBA. We've, heard the rumors about Danny Hurley. Rick Pitino obviously was a coach in the NBA. John Calipari as well. So there's a wide variety of that. So even though it might not be you're getting still great coaching at the collegiate level, maybe even better, but from what you are coming to, in which you have the ability to be able, like Darlan. I mean, the Sixers were so injury plagued last year. That guy very well could have been called up to playing on the Sixers. I mean, that's how close the guy was to playing in the NBA. And it's almost like an MLB minor league system where it's like, hey, we're going to call him back down to, to the Syracuse Mets or whatever have you. It doesn't logically make sense. This is not something that I personally believe should be allowed. Again, whether it's the international guys that maybe, haven't been signed to a contract to play overseas, but they played on the international junior teams, that's obviously fine. And even if they did play professionally, internationally, I think there's a certain age you can cut that off. Now, when it comes to, the G League affiliates, I don't think if you have made the decision, hey, I'm not going to go the collegiate route, I'm going to go the G League route, I think you should have 1 year in order to be able to change your mind. If not, and especially if you've been drafted to a G League team, if not, no can do. And the NBA is the most, as we know, player-friendly league. And obviously we're talking about the collegiate game, but the way that they have allowed players to be able to go, you only need a year. You can be picked right out of high school. Whereas in the college game, it's you can either sign out of high school when you get drafted or you're 3 years in college, which, I mean, that's probably an argument for another time. But my point is, it's so much more, shall I say, friendlier for these players to kind of do whatever the hell they want. And listen, I mean, if the option's there, obviously take it. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to ask yourself, is there somewhat of an advantage for this guy to be able to, having played 2 years in the G League or a year in the G League, to be able to come over and now play in the college ranks? I don't know. I don't know if that's the right message that the NBA should be setting and the college game should be setting as well. All right, folks, thanks for tuning into this episode. We'll be back on soon to count down as we approach the 2025-2026 St. John's basketball season.